Pros, happy Thursday. Welcome to Pro Power Hour, something we do every Thursday right around this time, 2 Pacific, 5 Eastern. It's a product training webinar that we do every week. We've been doing it for almost a year now. This is number 44, so we're getting pretty close. Um, yeah, we started this last year just to bring you more onboarding and training opportunities. This is a great opportunity if you're a new pro or if you're an old pro. If you're an old pro, it's a great way to stay up to date on what's new, make sure you know, um, and check out features that maybe you haven't already checked out. And then if you're a new pro, it's a great way to just get extra training as you're getting set up and getting onboarded to HCP. So welcome. We do meet on Zoom every week. So if you're on the Facebook group, happy to invite you to that so you get reminded when we're going to be having these things. Last week we did a session on the Max plans and our Super Pro program. And then all of our past recordings, they're all available in our help center and on YouTube. So we'll drop the link. But today we're going to be talking about Pricebook. Grateful to have Phil, as always, our resident onboarding specialist. So Phil, pass it to you. We can get started.
All right, awesome. Um, yep, today we are going over the price book, which is great. I was actually just talking with a pro right now about helping them set up their price book, so it is so fresh to me right now, and I'm so excited to share it all with you. We did go over this at some point before, and they did reference it, so and gave me some feedback on a couple of things I probably should have went in a little bit further on. So I again am super excited to just kind of revisit this and go into it. As usual, we'll start with our little slide deck here, just kind of reiterating some information about the price book. Most of you that have had any interaction with our price book understand that it's kind of at the front, very simple, but then there are a lot of layers that can be involved to create some complexity to the rest of the book. So I'm going to do my best here to kind of explain the best workflows that happen for your price book and bring up a couple of things that people are asking about, that some things that our price book just doesn't have. So want to make sure we're all well-rounded, and hopefully by the end of the session, everybody is an expert in the price book. So let's go ahead and just knock out some information first. So, with our agenda, just talking about what is the price book, talking about customizing the price book, any additional features, and then I will pull up my account and we'll go through a couple of examples. I know that typically, I know that we have a lot of questions, but if there is, I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase this. If you have a specific kind of workflow, or if you want to I might just be making it more difficult for myself. But if there's a specific workflow that you kind of do that you're not really seeing, definitely bring that up in the chat because I have worked with a couple of different workflows to make the price book work. Other than just kind of giving everybody like the red pill or the blue pill, like either flat rate versus time and materials. There's other ways that people utilize their price book from other CRMs that they've used in the past. So it does get a little nuanced, but I want to make sure that our price book really is adaptable to most businesses, and I want to make sure that we cover as many as we can. So with the first one, first slide here, just kind of what is the price book? So the price book is really where all of your services, all of your materials, where you keep them all within Housecall. We have made additions to the price book, such as our pricing forms. You can find those in the price book, and also our estimate templates. So as you start to create your own estimate templates, they will be saved and stored in your price book. But a couple of other things just about what is the price book. It's the best way to just streamline your business so everything is in one place. So when you are filling out estimates or invoices, I'm sorry, estimates or work orders before they become invoices, we can just go ahead and grab these services or grab these materials and add them as line items, or go ahead and pull up our pricing form. So customizing the price book, we're going to see is if there's really not a whole lot to it when it comes to customizing it. I tend to tell people a lot when we're training is always do what is best for your company. I know that there is some limitations. One of the questions we had that was prepared for us earlier was things like alphabetizing the price book. At this time, there really is no like quick button to click to go ahead and organize your price book by alphabetical order. So if that is something that you prefer to do, I would recommend that you do it yourself, and you have to do this manually. So kind of again reiterizing customizing your price book, it's really what you make of it. We give everybody, when you start with the system, we give you kind of a bare bones starting block of a couple of services with a couple of descriptions with no price. But really, if you are going to build out a price book in our system, you really need to take ownership and do it manually. We do have an option for a pre-built price book, which I'm sure we'll probably talk a little bit about in today's session, which is the Profit Rhino price book from Callahan and Roach. That is an add-on with an additional charge if you want it to your account, but that is a pre-built price book. So if you are new to our system and don't want to deal with the headache of building a price book from scratch, that is an option for you. We will talk about it as we get a little further into our session today. But when it comes to customizing your price book, you can always put in your own descriptions. So I typically tell people, those notes that you typically put in when your technicians are putting them on the job, put them in the description. And if you put them in your price book, it's going to populate every time you add it to an estimate or to a work order, so that way they're not wasting time having to type everything out from scratch. Entering the pricing again. So if you are a company that has set pricing for specific services, we can put this in the price book. So when we pull it up, it's just automatically put onto our work order or onto our estimate. Adding new services. So really what that means is really just kind of the service title. So if we want to say that it's going to be, a water heater installation, or you can call it the specific water heater that you're using and say, this is an installation of that one. Really, it's what you make of it, again, as I mentioned. And then there's also a place to add images. So if you want to add an image of the particular material or add a picture of one of your technicians doing the service, we can go ahead and stick that in the price book. So if we are going through it visually, we'll be able to quickly identify just based on the picture what it is we're looking for. So speaking of additional features and integration, the price book with us, as we kind of mentioned, is not necessarily a pre-built price book. It comes with the starting blocks, and then you just kind of build your price book from there. So that's kind of one of the first features that comes with our price book. Another feature we have is flat rate pricing. So as I mentioned, really we have made improvements to the price book, but before it was really kind of set between flat rate pricing and time and materials. So there is a flat rate switch to turn on if you are doing flat rate. I will show everybody where to go ahead and flip this switch. There is the Profit Rhino integration, which I mentioned is the pre-built price book from Callahan and Roach. Just a couple of things on that is that we have it only pertains to four and maybe five industries. I know it's HVAC, plumbing and drain cleaning, electrical, and then there's miscellaneous. So if you are outside of those industries, the Profit Rhino is not for you at this time. Service descriptions via AI. So that is fairly new and has been a game changer for a lot of people that have needed to build their price book from scratch, because now you have, and you're going to see it is when it comes to making descriptions, we don't have to come up with it all on our own. So if we just want to hit write it for us, you'll see the button right there. You give the AI prompt a couple of words that you would use, and then it's going to build something nice and sound well for you as you put it onto your estimates and your work orders. And then lastly is the pricing forms, which I kind of mentioned earlier, and we did talk about this on our earlier session. But for those pricing forms, now when I start demoing them, I'm going to reiterate is I tend to find pricing forms most beneficial for cleaning companies, landscaping companies, window companies, and painting companies. And you're going to see why I say that. But whenever I do onboarding with anybody, I typically show you the pricing form because maybe there is some use for it if you're an HVAC company. Maybe there is some use for it if you're a plumbing company. But I'm just going to be honest, most of the companies that I've shown it to that are within those industries don't really find it useful. But again, we will kind of point all of these things out as we go through the demo. So let's go ahead and take a look. So the first thing that we're going to look at is just basically setting up a price book. Now, I have a couple of different industries in here, and if you are just getting started with your price book, maybe you just signed on this week or last week and you're trying to build one out, you'll notice is that if you do have, typically we'll start you with one of your industries, but maybe you do plumbing and HVAC, maybe you do plumbing, HVAC, and electrical, and you may only see plumbing on there, or you may only see the HVAC industry on there. You can always go to the Add Industry button right here, and there's all of these different industries from the drop-down menu. I know that you have to select from it. That has been one thing that I've seen a lot of feedback on is how do we add an industry? We currently do not have a way of adding to this drop-down menu. It is only what is available. But if your business or industry is outside of anything that is in here, we do give you, I believe it's an other option, or maybe we got rid of it. Yeah, I could have sworn there was another option. Um, then in my suggestion, it would be pick the one that's closest to you. You could even do business services because at the end of the day, you're gonna build this out yourself anyway. It's really just a title as your starting point. So for an example, I'm just gonna go ahead and throw in painting in here so we can just see how that looks. So I selected painting and boom, it went there and created my industry. And as I mentioned, if we go further into it, you're going to see is that we do give you a starting block of some categories and subcategories. So continuing on that, as I was talking about on my previous call before this, they were saying that they didn't really like the options that were provided here. So example, like here in heat in HVAC, like they don't like that there's an air conditioning category. They want their own category. And as I said, you are more than welcome to go ahead and delete any of the ones that you don't need. You can even edit it. So if you want to just keep that category there, but you don't want it to be air conditioner, but we want it to, call it furnaces or whatever, you can just certainly go in here and one, either delete the subcategory or you can change the name of the subcategory. And also, since we are already in subcategories, there is a button to add additional categories so that you can continue to keep building within your price book. So just for a couple of examples of what I have done in my account under heating and air conditioning, and this might uh, perk up a couple of ears as I point these things out. So I've talked to some businesses in the past that say, well, we give our technicians commissions, and we want to be able to accommodate that in our costs and our pricing. So what I did is I created a category for all of my air conditioner services with the commissions included in that pricing. So when I know that I'm going to be giving out commissions on a certain job, I'm going to pull from this particular category. Same thing with this. I know credit card fees are a very popular topic, and I always say is always check with your state and county. Always make sure that you are able to pass credit card fees to customers. So make sure that is legal first before you go ahead and start doing this. But if you have the okay to do so, what I did is in my book is I went ahead and created my air conditioner category, but upped all my prices with my credit card fees. So that way, when I go ahead and add this service to an estimate or an invoice and a customer wants to pay cash or check, I can go ahead and give them a discount. People love seeing a discount. So that's one way to to bake in your credit card fees into your prices. I did have another one in here. I might have gotten rid of it, but there was another one I made when it comes to consumer financing, because consumer financing has a fee. If you are talking with the customer and the customer is open enough to talk about that they are planning on using consumer financing, you can, similar to what I did, is created a category with all of my services with the consumer financing fee added to each of those services, so that that way, again, I'm kind of covering these extra costs when it comes to just simply processing my payments. So that's kind of building, starting from industry, moving down to our categories. And then as we continue to go further into the book, we're going to go into, let's just use my air conditioner category here. Now, you can keep going as many subcategories as you want. One of the questions we had prepared today was is that somebody was having trouble understanding that we can continue to build more subcategories. So you don't just have to have one level of categories. You can continue to have as many as you want. In my example here, I think we only had about 2 or 3 levels before we hit our services. So here we are. Once we get down to our services, you can always click on one that is already in there. So this is one that was pre-built. I did have to add the picture. But if we aren't doing one from what is already provided to us, there is the service button right up here that we can go ahead and just add a new service from scratch. So speaking of adding a new service from scratch, I'm going to go ahead and do something like this. So let's say our service here is going to be yeah. So I have my service is going to be an AC diagnostic call with a trip charge. And in my description, I can go ahead and type out whatever I feel like writing. Or there's that AI button that I was talking about on our last slide. So if I click write it for me, I can go ahead and say, all right, it's an AC diagnostic call with a trip charge. And currently it's thinking, and boom, right there, it gave me something I could put in as my description. So easy enough. I can either copy and paste or hit use this. Made it super easy for you all. Now, when it comes to adding an image, very similarly to just adding any attachment, we just need to go ahead and grab a picture. A question I get all the time is, do we have a source of pictures for you? The answer is no. What you would want to do, and what I recommend everybody, is just simply going into Google. You see, and here we go. We got this guy right here, or maybe this guy. That's a better picture. So we'll save our picture, add image, and we'll upload the one I just got. All right, easy enough, just like adding an attachment. All right, as we scroll down, there is a spot for task codes. Now, task codes, you can have your own task codes. I keep getting questions about what is a task code. Really, it's just some kind of code in terms of numbers. I think you can also use letters. Actually, I'm pretty sure. Well, why not check? Okay, yeah, so you can use letters, just wanted to make sure. But it's really just a coding so that instead of when you are searching for a specific service or a specific material, if you happen to know what those task codes are, you can go ahead and punch it in instead of typing out anything from the description or from the service name. You'll see is when we talk about materials is instead of task code is going to be part numbers, so that that way you can start typing in the part numbers and then those will come up. Now, these next two windows right here, I'm going to show everybody this is what happens when you set up flat rate on your account. Because with flat rate on your account, you then have the ability to put in what labor rate is associated with this particular service. So within my price book, I have, I either send my lead technician out for this particular service, maybe I'll send out my second lead technician, or I have some of maybe, the apprentices or some of the lower tier employees that may go out for this. And everyone has their own cost and their own hourly rate. So if I am setting up flat rate, I'm going to go ahead and put in that my lead technician is going out there. And for an AC diagnostic call, that generally takes about, we'll say about an hour. Then underneath that, we have a spot for materials. So for our materials, it's going to pull from your price book because all of the materials are in the price book with a cost as well as a price that you typically charge your customer. So the most common one I always end up using is I always use my thermostat. I don't see it, so maybe we'll just use material X here. So material X, in my price book, I don't have a cost for it, but I do have a price. So again, if you're doing flat rate, what this is doing is putting our labor and our materials together so that when we stick it onto an estimate or onto a work order, it's just going to give the customer the description and that price at the end of the day. Now, underneath that, there is this booking window. We just recently did a recap on online booking, so I don't want to go too far in the weeds of online booking, but just want to point out again that here is the online booking window. So any services that are in your price book that are part of your online book on quote unquote online booking menu. This is where you can start to set up how long the service typically takes, what employees you want to have assigned to this particular service when it's selected online, if it's going to be a job or an estimate, and any troubleshooting questions for the customer to answer when they are going through the online booking process. Now, to the right over here, we have calculate my flat rate. Again, this is only available if you turn on the flat rate switch, excuse me, which I'm going to go ahead and show everybody. I promise I'll show it to you at some once we're finished going over setting up flat rate in our price book. I'll go ahead and turn it off so we would see what time and materials would look like. But with if I want the system to go ahead and calculate that flat rate price, we just turn the switch on and it gives us our breakdown there of our labor and our materials. Again, the customer is never going to see this information. We also do have the ability to set up what the quantity is going to look like, what unit of quantity it's going to be. So we have an example of square feet. So if your industry requires square feet, like landscaping, painting, maybe gutters, things like that, we can go ahead and put in square feet. We can do each, and we have this option of one. I haven't really seen too many people use true, but each and one, that's for people if you are doing it, by the foot, by the inch, maybe by the pound, whatever that is. So whatever you just do that quantity number so that we can then generate what the right price is going to be. Then underneath it, we do have it gives you a breakdown of what the markup is going to look like on this particular service and what our gross margin is going to be. And kind of the last thing on here is the taxable side. So if this service, if you push taxes to your customers when it comes to services, you can always turn this on. And then that way, when you add it to a work order or to an estimate, it's going to already apply your tax rate with this service. Now, now that we have our service, we can go ahead and hit save. There is also a spot to add to favorites. So if this is a service that you do frequently, you can click this button. And what that will do is when you are filling out an estimate or a work order, you may see that there's the drop-down menu that comes up as you start to type something out. And if it's one of your favorites, it's going to go ahead and move this option towards the top so that way you don't have to keep digging through your price book looking for it. So that's really kind of building the price book from the industry down each subcategory and getting down to a category if we are doing flat rate. Now, if we are not doing flat rate, um, it's really kind of the same thing, but if you're going for the switch to turn on flat rate or not, it is in your app section and it's going to be under flat rate pricing. So if I go ahead and turn this off and we go back to our price book, you'll notice that nothing really changes. There is a couple of options that were removed here. I'm going to turn it back on so we can see those when we start talking a little bit about Profit Rhino. But if we go back into heating and AC and we go and look for that service I just created, if we're doing time and materials and we're not doing flat rate, the flat rate switch is turned off. You will notice that we do not have that option for uh, labor rates as well as materials because now we're telling the system since we're not doing flat rate and we start to build an estimate or a work order, we're going to put in our services as a service line item, and most likely you're going to include labor as a line item. And then you're probably most likely going to add your materials as your line items as well. So that's really, if you are doing time and materials, that is the proper way in our system to do it by just doing everything as its own individual line item. But if you are doing flat rate, you probably want to flip that switch so that you can set the price book up for flat rate pricing. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that on because there's a couple of options that we can play with as well when it comes to flat rate. And also, I tell people is sometimes you may want to turn on flat rate because there are a couple of things specifically with materials, which I'm going to talk about in just a moment, um, that you can use without having to go full into flat rate pricing. And so one of those things is that when we are looking at a material, and we'll just go ahead, there's my trusty thermostat right there. So very similar. I know I went a little fast there, so let me take a step back. So with materials, it's very similar to setting up prices, I'm sorry, services in your price book. We can go ahead and create a category. So for me, I went ahead and created a category of all my materials that are on my trucks, all the tools that are going to be used. We have this ProPress. Actually, I've got two of them. So you can create as many material categories as you need, similar to how you set up your services. And then as we go further in, we have the ability to create more materials. So with my trusty thermostat here, similar to setting up the service, I can go ahead and put in my name, put in a description of that particular material. I can even include a picture if I want, and I have a spot for the part numbers. Now, with flat rate pricing turned on, there is this option to use material markups. I'm going to talk about material markups in just a minute, but basically you can set up your material markups in the system if you have the flat rate switch turned on, and then that way I can go ahead and put in a specific cost, and the system is automatically going to calculate what the is going to calculate the price to my customer by including my material markup. And then same thing with services. I can go ahead and set up what that unit is going to look like, whether that's each square foot or just quantity. And I can also mark if it's going to be taxable or not. Most people I talk to typically don't tax on the labor, they tax on the materials. So if you want to avoid having to flip the switch every time you add a material to your estimates or to your work orders, again, in the price book, we can just turn on the switch and it will be applied every time. Also similar to the services at the very top up here, there is that add to favorites. So again, as you're starting to type things out and all of your favorites will move to the top of the list so that that way you don't have to go digging for it. Now, moving on down, we do have the pricing forms. Now, again, I said that it is best used for landscaping companies, cleaning companies, painting companies, window companies. And the reason I say that is because when we are building out a pricing form, and we'll just take a look at my landscaping one here, is we go ahead and put in a name and a description. We can automatically have it be added to future jobs and estimates, and we can also make it taxable. Got a little image here that I found to add to it. So if we are looking through the price book, we can go ahead and pull it by the image. And there's also a spot where we can go ahead and add this pricing form to be part of our online booking. So that way, instead of the customer having to go through the process of going through our price book page by page or going through all of our services list, they can just go ahead and pull up the pricing form and fill it out as they do their online inquiry. Now, for the pricing forms, we have different, for the fields, we have four different fields that can be applied. One of them is quantity select. So in my example here of landscaping company, I don't have a quantity select, so I'm just going to put one on here. Let's say tree removal, and we'll say $80 a tree. So then what that does is, and I'll pull up a pricing forms so that we can all see it, is that when we look at the pricing form, they'll see tree removal and there's going to be a plus and a minus button so that we can go ahead and say 1, 2, 3. Want me to remove 3 trees? That's going to multiply $80 by 3. So $240 just for the tree removal. There is also a numerical range. And for that, I tend to see that mostly for landscaping and painting companies because really you're talking about a specific range. I have talked to a couple HVAC companies that have thought of using this when it comes to dealing with bigger locations that may have several units, because then you can go ahead and say, well, am I servicing one unit, or anything between 1 and 2 units is going to be one price, anything between 2 and 5 units is going to be another price. So if we're going to continue with my landscaping model here, if you want me to do a full front yard service, if that square footage is between 50 and 1,000 square feet, it's going to be one price. If it's anywhere between 1,000 and 2,000, it's going to be a different price. Another option is multi-select. So this is very similar to the add-ons from service agreements. So in my example for my landscaping company here, I have here, these are the options that you can opt into while I'm working on your landscaping. Do you want me to do tree trimming? If they select yes, that's going to add $100 to their bill. Do they want me to do bush trimming, resodding, any of these other options? They can just simply opt into them, and that will increase the price of their subtotal. Then the last option on here is single select. Um, I still have trouble trying to find a lot more of examples for single select. Ones that I've thought of in the past is like when it comes to cleaning companies. And I'm going to jump into mine just so that we can see it to make it make sense. But oops. All right, single select. So if it's going to be a regular clean, there's no extra charge. But if the customer says, I want a deep clean, I can just go ahead and say, okay, you selected a deep clean, that's an extra $100. Another really good example I've seen is like pets. So for cleaning companies, usually if you clean a place with pets or without pets, there's no extra charge. If there are pets, there's usually some kind of extra charge. So you can say, all right, they have pets, boom, it's going to add that extra charge. So that's really building out the pricing forms, and just to take a quick look at how one would look like when it comes to how that's going to look when it's on a job. So this is how it would look. So here's my landscaping service. And as I mentioned, for the front yard service, if you want me to do the numerical range, that's how we can simply add it. Same thing with the backyard service. For that multi-select, customer can go ahead and opt into the ones that they want. And as we see, it builds out my subtotal. So again, very new and cool feature. So I strongly suggest you all to at least give it a shot. If you're in any one of these industries that I said it doesn't work for and you seem to make it work, please let us know so that I can go ahead and pass some of this valuable information on to the people who aren't here today. So let's go on back to our price book and talk about the last couple of options on here. So another thing that's on here is the estimate templates. Now, we have talked in the past of how to build estimate templates. And really, as I mentioned, this is where they are all stored. You can go into a estimate template. And as we see here, there's my line items, and you can go ahead and make any changes to them. Um, I typically build them as I write them out on my system and then just simply save them. But you do have the ability to go ahead and just create a template from scratch right in this section. Just to quickly show everybody what it's going to look like for if we are on an estimate. All right, so I've gone ahead and started building an estimate here. The way to go ahead and save it to your price book from the estimate option is if we go on up to our option. So I have option number one. There's the three dots right there. If we go ahead and click on it, there is the ability to save it as a template. And when we click on it, it's going to ask us what do we want to call it. So we'll call it AC template save. Where do we want to put it in the price book? We saw the 5 categories I had for my estimate templates, so I'll just add it to the archive templates, and we'll call this AC template save. Got a description, and I can add an image if I wanted to. So now going back to the price book, we can go on in there, and if I go to my estimate templates, we save that in my archived templates, AC template save. And so that's where it will live, and we can make changes as I mentioned. Now, a couple of other things here in the price book. I'm going to pick this up a little bit because I know I've been talking for a minute and I want to get to some of your questions. We do have here import and export services. So if you are new to the system and you want to upload any services, or maybe you've talked to your vendor, I've talked to a lot of people where a lot of vendors will give you a CSV file of their inventory that you normally pick up. So if that is the case, you can always go to import and export services if you want to upload your price book into our system. What I recommend you do is first export it so that you get the CSV file format that we need for it to properly be uploaded into our system. And once you take all of the things from your vendor and stick them into the right columns that we ask for, you can then upload it, and then your book will be uploaded into our system in one quick sweep instead of having to put in each service, each material one at a time. One other thing is if you do need assistance with uploading any price books, you can reach out to it is data transfers at housecallpro.com. That is our data transfer team. They can go ahead and assist with any price book uploads. Tax rates, this is pretty straightforward, but if you do push taxes to your customers with our Canadian pros, where you have your taxes up there, you can go ahead and put in what that tax rate is going to be. And that way it'll live in the system. And we have talked about it when we went through jobs and estimates, how to go ahead and apply your tax rates on each job and each estimate. There is also the service price adjuster. So if you are doing flat rate or if you are doing time and materials in which you are mostly leaning on services, you do have the ability to go ahead and pick a specific category. You can even go as far as into a subcategory, and you can go ahead and increase or decreases your prices by a certain percentage. So for all those people who asked how I did the credit card fees, how I did the consumer financing and the commissions, this is the quickest way to do it because you can go ahead and select an entire category and say, I want to increase it by 3%. With a lot of the uncertainty with materials these days, I know that this is going to be a very popular area for a lot of people, but this is the best and the quickest place to go ahead and make those adjustments to your prices in terms of services. The reason I say that is because one of the questions we got before our meeting today was is that somebody asked about how to do this with materials. At this time, we don't have a simple like snap all button to increase our materials by a specific price. What you can do for that is what's going to be in your material markups. That would be my workaround. Otherwise, you're going to have to do it manually one by one. But before I talk about material, actually, I'm just going to hop into material markups because we're talking about adjusting prices. So when you turn on flat rate, we give you these material markups, and this is already preset, and this is pretty industry standard. For those who can't see, I'll go ahead and kind of increase that a little bit. But what this is telling the system is that any of my materials in my material price book that are anywhere between a penny and $100, that material is going to be marked up 150% so that I can make 60% profit on it. Now, if you have your own markups, you can hit the edit button over here and you can go ahead to start adding in your additional markups. So this is kind of my first suggestion when it comes to, hey, I want to increase the prices of my materials across the board for, whatever reason it may be. You probably want to start here with material markups because that will reflect it across the entire material price book. But if you want to do specific services, you'll probably have to do it one by one. So that's the material markups. But then what I skipped over was the labor rates, which is very similar to when we were doing flat rate in our services. I can go on in here. You see, notice these are the ones that I had when I was looking at my services. I had my apprentice, my lead tech two, and my test labor. So this is where you can go ahead and start adding those labor rates to select from if you are doing flat rate. Now, again, if you are doing time and materials, you're going to do labor separately as its own line item because we saw that there is no place to add a labor rate if you do not toggle the flat rate switch on. And really, from there, that's really all there is to it when it comes to the price book. I know I've been talking for quite a while here, so I would like to open the floor up to any questions. Let's take a look if any came through the chat first. What is your view on the taxable tab? Sometimes adding tax to services upsets people. Do you recommend your pricing to include tax already rather than adding the taxing tab on the invoice? My view on Well, first off, when it comes to taxing is that you can always have the switch on and have it be enabled so that when you add it, it's already there on your subtotal. But before you even issue it to your customer from the invoice and estimate level, you do have the ability to uncheck the box to make it untaxable. So really, my view on the taxable tab is that I would have at least all my materials be taxed just because that's what most people tell me is they usually only push taxes on materials. And then as a case by case basis, if you're choosing not to, you can always just not turn the switch off, but you can uncheck the box on your work order invoice. So that's the only one I saw in our chat. I'll go ahead and go through the ones that we had prepared today and give you all some time to put some in. So the first one from Derek. I'm working on my price book and material lists with material tracking turned on. Is there a way to see materials that were used for the entire week for tracking or only per job? So the answer to that is it's not necessarily a price book question, Derek, but I will answer it anyway. For that, it's actually going to be in your reporting. So whenever you add a material, either as a material line item, or it is included with your service if you're doing flat rate, or if you add it as a job input, you're going to be able to find that information in reporting, and it's going to be under jobs, material usage on jobs. So that way I can see here that over the last 30 days, I've used a quantity of 10 of this gutter and one quantity of this air filter. That I'm pretty sure is what you're looking for. All right, two questions from Wayne. I could have sworn I saw I was able to create many levels of service categories, but I went back and there seems to only be one level. Um, Wayne, as I did mention, you can continue to go into as many subcategories as you need. So like, for example, the one that we just created was that painting one. So I have one category. And there's the button for subcategory. You can just continue to keep building category on category. On that note, the list of industries is limited and not customizable. Is there a way to sort it alphabetically? So as I mentioned earlier in our session, the industries cannot be customized. Nothing can be added to the drop-down menu. You simply grab what you can from there. I understand that it is not sorted alphabetically. That is some feedback we can certainly bring. But as far as I know, there's no plans to really alphabetize that at this time. All right, next question from Morrison. Is there a way to sort items in the price book? I want them to be alphabetical, but I can't do that. I addressed this earlier. At this time, there is no way to alphabetize the price book. If you want to do that, it's going to have to be done manually. Richard, is there a way to increase materials and equipment by percentage like the services? Um, as I mentioned, there really isn't a way. The best way to do that would be with your material markups. You can always increase it by 8%. Otherwise, you can do it. You'll have to do it one by one. Next one from Brian. Is there any way to add an existing estimate to a price book? I copied another template and edited it, but it won't save it. Um, so Brian, you may want to do a support call just so we can better understand what it is you're doing. But what I did to test this out earlier is I went all the way back to last year to an estimate that was created last year, and I was able to save that as a template. So old estimates can be saved as a template. Question from Alejandro. Need help with the price book, trying to keep materials and services separate. We sub things out, but they are indeed services. What is the best way to set it up if there's no labor rate? So that to me sounds like you're doing time and material. So as I kind of mentioned, is for that in our system, most people will go ahead and add services. So you'll add your services, and in your services is where you're going to add your labor. And then there is the spot to start adding your materials as line items separately. So you would want to add them separately. And with that, that's all of the previous questions. Here's a couple that just rolled in. If I need to make an appointment with Mr. Phil for onboarding, how long will it take? You can reach out to our chat team and you can request a support call. I don't know what our soonest availability is. I'm not the only person over here, but we do have I think there's about almost 60 of us now, so that we certainly have some availability. Um, I would just, again, reach out to our chat support, or you could probably reach out to Chris and Lauren in the community and they can set you up as well. Um, Christopher, any option coming for having a cloud price book that can be pushed out by headquarters? Um, Not really sure what you mean by that, Christopher, because technically the price book is in the cloud. Um, and it does go to everybody on your account. So I would need a little bit more clarification on that question.
Yeah, I know we are exploring some options where, you could, where suppliers will potentially integrate with us. I know there's nothing really set right
Oh,
now.
okay.
Maybe that's what he's referring to. Um,
Okay, yeah, because that would make sense to me where the vendors could essentially send it to like a house called Pro Cloud or something like that. Sounds like that is being discussed. I personally have not heard anything about this.
early stages. Yeah, nothing official right now.
Cool, cool. Anything from the Facebook group?
I'm checking again right now. I know we had a few people in here, but I don't see any questions. Y'all will monitor the thread though, so if you have questions later, you're finding this on Facebook, just comment in there, comment in the comments, and we'll get back to you, try to answer your question. Here on Zoom, I just dropped the link for our office hours. It's another great way to connect with some other pros, get some of your business questions answered, give us feedback. It's every Friday. It's just live time. So instead of you being like behind us, only being able to chat in, you can actually join on camera or speak. So it's a good opportunity. Come hang out with us for an hour. So otherwise, I think next week we're going to be talking about pipeline. So encourage y'all to be back for that. Maybe you've had an interest for a while, you've kind of been hesitant. It's a great opportunity to just get a full demo, full tour of what it would look like and how you could implement it in your business. So encourage you to join us. Phil, thank you for being so thorough today. Really appreciate it. Deserve a good
What?
drink of water now. I'm sure you're parched. And I think that'll do it. So we'll catch y'all next week. Catch you at office hours tomorrow. Thanks again.
Yeah, see you then.
All right. Bye.
Bye.